Okay, it is August 10th, 2022, and we are back for another edition of AAPC Social Hour, back from our national conference, or not national, a regional conference in Denver, Colorado. I am AAPC Alex. I have Sandy Brown with me and Lisa Ray Roper. How are you, ladies?
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for being with us today. Lisa Ray, Sandy and I were talking about Denver. I don't know if you were out there. Did you happen to be at a regional conference last week?
No, last week while you guys were at regional conference, I was in Glacier, Montana, and then I was water skiing. So unfortunately, I was doing something less fun than being at a coding conference.
I'll say I had a blast. I was completely exhausted when I got home. I napped a lot this past weekend. Sandy, how did you do? Were you exhausted? I know you were very busy as well.
Yes, it was awesome, Alex. And I was sharing with Alex that it was fantastic to be able to meet people in person that I had been connecting with. It just feels like I connected more in the last couple of years because of COVID and because of some of the restrictions, of course, that I've connected more online. And it was so awesome to be able to see people in person and be able to have conversations and have them attend your sessions or attend their sessions, and so many great sessions there that I was raving about it. I was even telling my boss yesterday about, oh my gosh, this presentation was so great. So there were so many positives about it. And then it was a beautiful facility, I have to say. I had never been there before, even living in Colorado, and it was absolutely gorgeous. So yes.
Yeah, it was a fun time. We have some members who are joining us right now, and some names I've never seen before. Mallory Wennard from Maryland. Mallory, I'm a huge Orioles fan, and they are doing really well. So I don't know if you're a baseball fan, Mallory, but I hope you are. If you aren't, you should jump on the Oriole bandwagon right now. Regina Park from Tennessee, and Regina, we hope to see you in Nashville for our national conference next May. Lisa Ray and Sandy, do you guys plan on attending that?
Yes, definitely.
And what was amazing about the Denver conference is for me, it felt like the national conference. I know we always have fewer members there, but it felt big. It felt our events team did a wonderful job. And like you said, Sandy, that the resort was amazing. Now, Lisa Ray, where are you located?
I'm in Missoula, Montana, and so have the opportunity to travel over to Denver quite often. And I work in kind of the Western region, but all over the United States. But call home, Montana. Go Grizz.
All right. I love it. And Sandy, you mentioned you are in Colorado. Whereabouts in Colorado?
Yeah, so I live an hour north of Denver, just straight north of I-25 in Loveland, Colorado. So we're just kind of tucked in where we can be in the mountains in 45 minutes to an hour. And we love the fact that we can see the foothills and we can go to the mountains very easily. And, we also can go to Denver, Fort Collins, all the different areas. So we love that. And, I meant to also share, Alex, that talking about being exhausted, yes, I also was exhausted, and it was wonderful. I was able to get my 10,000 steps in every day with no problem. And then Friday after the conference, my husband and I had tickets to go to Red Rocks, which I had never been there before. And by the time we were done at 11:15, we finally left the concert, and I was absolutely wiped. But it was I just felt like I was on such a high after the conference and then this concert, and so wow. I'm still coming down.
Yes, you jam-packed a lot in.
Yes.
Well, you both are a member of AAPC's committees, so we typically have the National Advisory Board on, or the AAPCCA Board of Directors on, and we don't know much about the committees. I'm going to just assume with our members watching, and we've had committee members on a few times, and I think the committees have evolved a lot over the last year or two.
Mhm.
Would one of you just share a little bit about the committees, how many there are, and which committee or committees you represent?
Sure. So I was asked to kind of step into a role. I know we're trying to really support our members, right? And we really want folks to know that from the perspective of the committees, of each kind of taking a different specialty or a specialization. And so we, and I then recruited very quickly Lisa Ray, and we have about 6 members on our committee. And we are with the AAPC compliance committee. And so we try to focus on, anything compliance. And we really try to think about topics that could be written for the Healthcare Business Monthly. Also presenting at the national conference. I was just at the regional, and then plan to be also in Nashville next year. And I think Lisa Ray is too. And just being able to represent and be able to bring that perspective, because Lisa Ray and I both work in that that space quite a bit and work collaboratively. So, and I'll let Lisa Ray kind of speak to what her involvement has been as well.
Thank you, Sandy. So Sandy is correct. She was very quick in asking me to join the committee. And the minute I got that invitation, I said, absolutely. So when we are looking at compliance committee issues, we try to take the broader scope of looking at not only hospital compliance, outpatient compliance, but also compliance as it would relate to employees or students moving through the space that we're looking at. We also take a very broad view of questions that are coming into AAPC and then are funneled into this compliance committee so that we can focus on what the members are asking about and what they would like to see. We then are informed by those questions in taking the routes of what should we present or how should we present it. And so on the 17th, I know we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be doing a very nice webinar, and that webinar is going to be about working with in-house counsel or counsel about compliance and trying to answer some of the hot topics, if you will. And so working with an attorney sometimes can be a fearful experience. And so we're going to be focusing on some of the ways to make that more pleasant for everyone involved. If you can call pleasant if you are going to be audited, right?
Lisa Ray, we're going to talk more about that presentation in just a minute. And I have questions and thoughts about that. And I know both you and Sandy have a lot to share about that. Real quick, I'm going to let our publishing team, we've got Lee Fifield on with a few authors from HBM, and they're joining us right now. We're going to talk about what they have going on. I'm going to give a few shout outs. We got Kathy Parkhurst from Buffalo. Hey, Kathy, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Stephanie the Barge. I think you guys may know. She needs rest too from such a busy conference. And here we have Lee, Carrie, and Jessica. I can't see Jessica.
I'm here. Oh, hang on.
You're hiding from us.
I am hiding. I'm not intending to. Let me see if I can get this to, oh, there we go. Hang on. Oh, I'm clicking start my video. I'm not sure what the problem is here. I just got a new laptop, folks. So that's what happens when you get a new laptop.
Look by your webcam. Look at your webcam, and there might be a little slider that's blocking the camera.
I've already tried that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
okay. I don't want to
okay.
hold everybody up. I'll see if we can monkey with it.
Well, you'll be a mystery, and you're just begging for everybody to want you to come back and see who you are.
I don't know about that. Carrie's really the star of the show. So
well, Lee, would you introduce our August HBM authors and what they wrote about?
Oh, sure. Let me just.
Did I catch you off guard?
You did. I was expecting you to introduce.
Okay,
them.
I can do that.
Honest, but I can do
that.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got Carrie Severson and Jessica Whitney,
yes.
who you both work for AAPC. Is that correct?
Correct.
We do. Yes, we
Okay.
both work for the audit services department.
All right. And I see Carrie's background, and it's got that beautiful AAPC office, which That's, man, if there's a place that I'm missing in the office that looks like that, you better tell me, Gary.
Yeah, I've never seen it in person, but
Okay. It looks like there are better treats in that section of the office.
right.
But you both co-wrote an article called Report ABA Therapy Service with Confidence. I was speaking with Renee Dustman, who is our editor of Healthcare Business Monthly, and she said, you need to have these ladies on to share a little bit about their article and why it's important to medical coders. Would you guys just share a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'll kind of start here. Carrie and I really kind of co-wrote this together. Carrie is truly our behavioral health subject matter expert. I did a lot of the research for it as well. So the history of ABA is kind of interesting. It's actually the therapy itself has been around since the 1960s. There were temporary category 3 codes, that were published in 2013, but the final codes themselves were actually not published until 2019. So relatively new service here. So Carrie and myself over in Audit Services have been doing audits for these services really only for the last couple of years. And so it's really kind of been an evolution of education for us, learning about services that are relatively new. Basically ABA therapy stands for applied behavioral analysis, predominantly used with children with autism, although it's applicable to other developmental disorders as well. It's a little different from other therapy type services in that typically kiddos go to a therapy center, and you think of your traditional type therapy where you're there for an hour. It doesn't work like that with ABA. You're talking about kids that are there for 3, 4, 5 hours while their behavior is being observed. And really, they kind of work hand in hand with 2 different types of therapists there. One is generally called an RBT, a behavioral therapist. And that's really kind of the person that kind of stays with them hand in hand throughout the therapy, observes the behavior. And then there's what's called a BCBA, which is really kind of the overseeing behavioral analyst who develops the protocol for the therapy, modifies the therapy based upon the interaction with the behavioral therapist and the child. And then, of course, the coding is all related to who's performing the service. There's different codes for the behavioral therapist, different codes for the BCBA, for the overseeing analyst, and then of course different modifiers. And I'll let Carrie speak a little bit to the to the protocol itself and the codes and diagnosis codes and modifiers that are used.
Hey, Carrie, before you do that, for those watching, let us know in the comments if you code for behavioral health. And if you have any questions for Carrie or Jessica, we'd be happy to give them a shot while we have them online with us. Carrie, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So there's, like Jessica explained, there are different codes for the RBT, the technician, and the BCBA, depending on who's performing the service. These are time-based codes in 15-minute increments. And it has to be very clear who is doing what when. And there's situations where they can sometimes overlap. The BCBA is doing some treatment and some therapy at the same time a technician is as well. And depending on the payer, you may have what we call concurrent billing. Some payers will allow for that, some payers will not. So the documentation of the time is very crucial for billing. The documentation of what is going on between that technician or the BCBA and the client or the patient needs to be kind of clear what they're doing, how they're trying to redirect them, things like that. It doesn't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs. It can be. I've seen stuff like that. There's also some really great software out there that we've seen that has some data analysis and data points, which show what the patient is doing and how they're doing it correctly, maybe a certain percentage of the time. So documentation needs to include those kinds of things as well as the time. There are, as she said, some different modifiers that go along with it. There are lots and lots of abbreviations that you'll see in documentation. There's a few of them that we listed in the article, but there's a slew of them. So it's important for people that are documenting and or coding or billing for these services to understand what those are. So it's easily to read and decipher. There are some codes that some are, like I said, the BCBA does the work or the therapy, the technician does the work or the therapy just with the patient one-on-one, or there are group situations, and also there's some family services that are represented by different codes.
Carrie and Jessica, I'm curious. Jessica, by the way, it's amazing to see your face.
Yeah, I got
Yes.
the camera working.
We're in the same room.
That's right, you are. So odd. Hey, I'm curious. So audits or APC services or APC audit services, that is a division of AAPC that does coding for facilities and such. Is that correct?
It is. We're kind of we're part of the business to business side of AAPC. So we basically consult coding, other revenue cycle management services, as well as all manner of audits. I mean, we do everything from compliance audits, due diligence, focused audits for all different specialties, all different sizes of organizations. We do provide coding services as well for those. I mean, obviously coding is a little bit different than auditing services. And then we also do a lot of revenue cycle management work as well, claim edits, denials, just analysis of KPIs and stuff like that too.
Well, I'm curious, is behavioral health both of your specialties? Jessica, you alluded to Carrie being the pro at this.
I would consider myself to be about intermediate. Carrie is my go-to person. So Carrie's kind of our resident. She doesn't necessarily claim to be that. I think she undercuts herself just a little bit. She's fairly brilliant with behavioral health services, but I've told her that before. Yeah, Carrie, we both do. We've got several people that do different types of behavioral health services. Carrie's always kind of my go-to person for that.
So what led to this article for you? How did you become involved with it? And I guess this is an important update.
It is. Carrie,
Right.
Do you want to go ahead and?
No, you go right ahead, because I think that you understand that side of it just a little bit more of why and how it's come about.
Well, really this article came about exactly how I said in the beginning. These are relatively new codes, final codes just published in 2019. We have started to see just over the last couple of years, more and more and more audit requests for these services. So I think that there's a real need for understanding out there in the coding and auditing community. One of the other tricky things about these particular codes that makes this article very important is that they are so focused on specific payer guidelines. You will find payer by payer by payer that they want different codes. There's also a couple of different HCPC codes that can be reported for these services. We find that some of the Medicaid carriers prefer those HCPC codes. Some prefer the CPT codes. Different carriers want different modifiers. And Carrie, I don't know if you talked about the concurrent billing, but concurrent billing with ABA therapy, which is one of the points that we really wanted to make in the article, is a huge component of coding accurately for these ABA services. And that's all information we've discovered over the last 2 years as Carrie and I have had to educate ourselves on these services. And so I think it's needed information in the coding and auditing community.
Okay. I have 2 comments that came through the chat. Robin Alvarado says, I've been in behavioral health auditing and coding for over 15 years. I love behavioral health. I was actually dragged into the field, for which I'm so grateful. I started working. Sometimes we need that push.
I think we all feel that way sometimes.
Really?
We like to call them educational opportunities.
There you go. That's right. That's right. Good spin. I started working out in the field, working for the RBHA Regional Behavioral Health Authority in southeastern Arizona. Thank you for sharing that, Robin. And it's fun to see the different paths that our members take. You come in with your CPC, not sure really which direction will happen or what path you'll be led down. And it's fun to see that behavioral health has become a part of your toolbox. Now, Dee Marie says, can you go over the group and family codes? And I don't know if how that's related to behavioral coding, and I don't know if it's possible to do that with the short time that we have with the two of you. Any thoughts about her comment?
So let me just look at the codes. I don't have them memorized. I should, but I don't do ABA therapy auditing every day. So some of the, let's see, right here. There's the 97154 is for the group therapy. And basically they all kind of carry the same components, and you need to document kind of in the same way, but they will be a little bit different, of course, if you're just doing it with the family, or let's say the parents or the guardians, because they won't be doing any protocol modification per se, or protocol treatment, but they will be. So there's the group that they'll be doing the same things with different patients at multiple patients at one time in the group, directing each client or patient. That's 97154. Like I said, sorry, I don't know them by heart.
Can I tack on to that just quickly
Yes,
here?
please
So
do.
with any type of group therapy, you're billing the group therapy code, but really what we're also looking for in that documentation is, what did you do within the group specifically relevant to that patient? There does need to be something
Right.
that addresses that patient specifically and their interaction within the group, and not just the group as a whole. So that's always something that we're looking for with any type of group therapy.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing. We're going to leave that the group and family codes there, because I feel like that could be something that could lead us down a huge rabbit hole. But for our friend Dee Marie, who asked about that, Dee Marie, I would recommend jumping into the AAPC Facebook group. And there are over 40,000 coders in there, from decades of experience to newbies to students. You may already be in there, but I think that would be a great place to ask that question.
Right.
Our friend Robin Alvarado, who got pulled into behavioral coding, she says, today I am a CDI supervisor for the Virginia Talk About Different. So yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
she's found many different places to explore in her professional career. That's pretty neat. Well, Sandy, Lisa, Ray, do you have any questions for Jessica or Carrie?
Okay. I have one question. This is fascinating, and it sounds like I'm really looking forward to reading your article in total. But can you tell me, from the work that you've been doing in auditing services, what is the most missed component when it comes to looking at documentation?
I think it's probably what I've seen. I think the most missed component is being able to document enough that we really realize that there is the therapy going on. Like I said, the software that they've come out with, the couple of different clients that I've done some audits with, is fantastic, because there's so much that goes into it. If you're still doing it by handwritten notes, that's a lot of work, right? So a lot of times we miss, we call them data sheets. We miss a lot of information there. Sometimes we don't have it. Sometimes we don't have a brief narrative just to kind of sum it up, a couple of sentences maybe. And that's what I see the most often missing.
I think we've also observed that sometimes it's hard to tell if there's actual protocol modification happening within the documentation, because that's one of the required components. Also, the time in the audits that we've looked at, the documentation of the time has been a bit of a problem there.
I'd also like to add in is that sometimes they'll say that they're doing updates to the treatment plan, or they updated the graphing or something to that effect, and you can't tell that they are actually face to face with that client.
Right.
And that has to be part of the service. You must be face to face. No charting time or anything like that.
And gals, I just wanted to ask too, is there education given to the providers and such as feedback with them to make sure that they are correcting and like Jessica said, I always love that statement of educational opportunities, you know, when talking to them, making sure that they're aware of what they may not have had just right so that they can have it right the next time. So I'd love to learn more about that too.
Sure. So Carrie and I are actually both on our training team here at AAPC Services with a couple of other people. With these particular audits that we've done, any of the audits that we've done for ABA therapy, they've actually not been standard compliance audits. They've been what we refer to as due diligence audits. So in a due diligence audit, really what you're doing is you've got one business acquiring another business, and we're coming in and doing that audit to assess the level of risk associated with the coding and documentation of the purchase or that acquisition. So unfortunately, we've not had the opportunity. We've had tons of opportunities to educate providers on other areas and all manner of different coding and auditing, but we've not had that opportunity with ABA therapy because they've pretty much all been related to due diligence. So we're actually quite removed from the organization that's being acquired at that point for just the integrity of the acquisition.
Sure. And I actually, you're speaking definitely my language, Jessica. I just recently, 2 months ago, in fact, made a change in my career where, you know, just where I was. And I actually joined a private equity firm that I never thought I would. And so we are the folks who are acquiring these practices or we're selling them off. So I completely get what you're saying. And, you know, we work very closely, and I love in the capacity of where I am, we then, if we get these due diligence audits and there hasn't been education, then we try to do that. So I love that. And, you know, we could take your reports and go, okay, well, here's our opportunities and here's where we're going to focus.
Right.
So no, I love it. And I love how things can just collaborate at times. So we're all in this together, right?
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Yes.
I love this discussion with our audit services team. And my mind, this is the first time we've had anybody from your division on Social Hour. And I'm thinking, man, there is so much to explore with you guys and our coders out there. So I'm going to work with Stephanie and see what we can do. Because Lisa Ray, your question about documentation, that is huge. I mean, we've been talking about it for many years, but it's still something that constantly comes up. Carrie and Jessica live in that world and understands that and probably could have a lot to share beyond what we have in this short time. So we'll work on that, and we might see you guys back on here another time, Jessica and Carrie.
That would be great.
Real quick, Lee, you have a pitch for us, but before you give us that pitch, I want to hear what was your favorite article in this month's Healthcare Business Monthly.
Well, being, you know, a word jockey, not a coder, I was really drawn to the tips for achieving patient scheduling success article. It was based on a HealthCon presentation last year from Mary Gruccio. And, you know, because I'm a planner and an organizer by heart, you know, I appreciate the fact that, you know, you need to organize and document and plan to make a process run smoothly. So I liked that article because it had tips on establishing office policies and, you know, creating an even flow to the day, maybe through templates and other things. You know, not only for obviously healthcare professionals, but just, you know, because I'm also a patient, and, you know, when you go to a doctor's office, if things are running smoothly and if they've got their processes down and everybody's working together. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, it's something for the employees but it's also something for the patients, from first impressions to just wait times and things of that nature. So that was kind of the article that I really enjoyed for August.
So I'll tell you, I was actually a practice administrator for about 25 years before I came here to the AAPC. So I'm well versed in constructing patient schedules and working with providers to achieve the right flow throughout the day, because you're absolutely right, Lee. It can make or break the day for everybody in the clinic, in the practice. I mean, it really has a lot to do with, if you don't allot enough time for the provider to address certain things, you allot too much time. It's really quite an art. And has everything to do with patient satisfaction, provider satisfaction, those reduced wait times. Obviously, nobody likes to sit and wait. Nobody likes to be doubled up with, 2 or 3 people in a room. So I've had a lot of experience with good scheduling and bad scheduling.
Yes.
And there's definitely an art to it.
Absolutely.
Lee, tell us about writing for Healthcare Business Monthly. Actually, let me pause you on that because Mallory Wennard says this: I really want to contribute to Healthcare Business Monthly, but I'm very new to coding and not sure what to write about. I don't want to submit anything generic or repetitive. What do you have to say to Mallory?
Well, I would say just, write what's near and dear to you. If something can be very specific, I mean, you could write about like one specific code, or it could be more of a general take on a grouping of codes. It's, everybody has different levels that they're at and needs to hear different things. So we may have written about something a few years ago, but maybe the time has come again to write about it again. I mean, there's new coders coming through the doors every day, and they want to read about these things too that you might be afraid is, it's kind of, it's old hat. I'm sure this has been written about before. So I would say don't be afraid, and write about something that you've had experience with or had a problem with and have a solution for. I mean, that's really what our readers are looking for.
And Lee, I put a link to the article submission or become an author webpage that's in the comments. So if you're interested, click on the link that I just dropped into the comments and learn more about that. Mallory, I have to say this. So it's not just about coding, but it's about soft skills too. So I'm sure you've submitted a resume or interviewed for a job, or I'm sure you've had a unique experience as you've prepared for your exam, student perspectives, things like that. There's so many things. And this not only applies to Healthcare Business Monthly, but it applies to your local chapter and what can you share there. So I think when newer coders come into the AAPC world, they see Elisa, Ray, Sandy, Jessica, and Carrie and think, holy cow, they know so much, but that's decades of experience. And you don't have to match that. You just be you, like Lee said.
Right.
So can I tack on to that and say that Carrie and I, and I'm sure everybody on this call would be considered seasoned auditor or coders. I will be fully transparent that there is something every single day that I have never seen before in my life. And I am researching and learning something new every day. I know Carrie, and I mean, we collaborate together frequently with a lot of our other colleagues in AAPC services, where we're calling somebody saying, do you have any experience with XYZ? Because I mean, man, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never seen this in my life. So just remember, we're all new at something every single day, truly.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Jessica, Carrie, and Lee, for being with us. And we will see you again sometime in the future, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.
Great, thank you.
Have a great
You're
day,
welcome.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Lisa, Ray, and Sandy, we have some questions I want to get to that have come in through the comments that I want our viewers to know we are not ignoring you. We kind of juggle as we go through this. But first off, I want to share a few things. So if you attend conference, we usually give out pins. So I just want to share these are the pins from the last few. So this is from our Dallas, Texas conference, and that was our last in-person national conference. And then this is a unique one from our last the national conference this past year. That was supposed to be Washington, D.C., but became virtual. So maybe you should have a computer screen on there or something. And then here's the one from this past week for our HealthCon regional in
love that.
Denver. So yeah, so I don't know. I'm a collector of randomness, and I like to hold on to things. But if you attend a conference, kind of maybe you'll become a collector as well. But real quick, so we've got Kalita Maddie, and she has so many questions. And Kalita, we will not be able to get to all of your questions. I'm just going to go up and get a few. Kalita, she asks, I will love to suggest an APC to give us more training as new coders to not have such difficulty finding a job. So she's a new coder, struggling to get that first job. And this is one of those comments, Mallory, that you could write about. We talk about this every social hour, and we could write about it in every healthcare business monthly. And I'm just going to give, well, actually, let's start with this. Sandy, do you have any tips for our friend Kalita who's watching?
I do. And, Lisa Ray and I both teach for the virtual program, the online instructor-led training for the AAPC, and we both love it. And I love it. We do the fundamentals, and then I pass my students on to her just coincidentally. But I love that. But one thing I would say is, and I tell my students, try to get into two things. One is try to get your foot in the door of a clinic or a healthcare setting any way you can. If it is the front office receptionist, if it is filing records, anything. Because during that process of interviewing for that, they're going to hear that you are taking this coding certification and that you're wanting to open the door to that. And they may be very open to then having you be able to explore that more and move into that position. The other thing that I also encourage folks to do is to also join your local chapter. Being able to network is you just make those connections and be able to have those face-to-face conversations or on Zoom, because some are still doing it remotely. But I definitely encourage folks to get involved there, because that is how you make those connections, and jobs can literally drop in your lap with those things. And I know, Lisa Ray, you've got some great suggestions as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. Those are absolutely, and I'm just going to tack on to the back of what Sandy said. AAPC definitely has some other things that I would suggest exploring to make sure that you have verification of skills. And one of those things is called the Practicode. You can take that and you actually are coding records. You get a fundamental grade. It's an objective grade, meaning that you are proving the skill set. It's a very great tool to have on your resume. Also at AAPC, they do have some mentorship type programs that are available. And you can certainly find out about all of those things by calling the customer service or exploring. Those two things, plus working with your local chapter. And then another thing that I would suggest very strongly is, if you are passionate about one field, possibly, or you live in a rural area and people say, I don't have that many opportunities because we have one hospital or we have two hospitals. And I know you're looking for a job, so this is not what people want to hear, but think about volunteering for that organization. Even if you are volunteering to do something like a fun run, because that's what they're doing and you're doing registration for that or something else for that local hospital, you will make those network connections and you have an opportunity to talk about what you would like to do. The third thing that I'd like to focus on are the soft skills that Alex mentioned earlier, and truly making yourself into the product that you are trying to be in order to get that job. And one of those things that you really need to work on is what we call a self-commercial. And that means that you are going to be able to talk about yourself, your skills, and your background in less than 1 minute, and make it a very tantalizing 1 minute with that audience, so that someone will ask you some more questions. And that's a good way to get your foot in the door. Great question. Thank you for asking.
You guys took all of my answers. Okay. I mean, you are so well prepared. I love it. So Lisa Ray, you brought the mentorship program. That is a free service to any AAPC member. And I think it's great for AAPC members, professionals, to have a mentor, regardless of where you are in your career journey. I know the two of you have great friends that you can bounce ideas off of.
Yep.
And someone new may not have those connections yet. You get those when you go to HealthCon and
Yes.
you go to your chapter meetings
Yes.
and you're working. Just if you Google AAPC mentorship program, that will come right up. So definitely do that. Again, it's a free service, and build that relationship. And Sandy, you mentioned local chapter meetings. Oh, I not only attend, by the way, Robin Alvarado pitched her Tucson chapter meeting virtually
Good.
tonight. So yeah, I mean, I love it. But so there you go. There's a meeting there you can hop into. But participate, show them your work ethic, show them how you work with others.
Yes.
That goes so far. Right, for Healthcare Business Monthly, involve yourself. If you want this as your career, you inject yourself with these different opportunities. They are there. They are there.
And I
Yes.
just would like to say too, Alex, that, you know, for a lot of us, I know Lisa Ray and I have known each other like 19 years. I think it's something crazy like that. Because, you know, we met when we were 5. I'm just going to say
Two.
that.
When we were 2.
Two. I was going to age them. But with that being said, we have continued to, you know, stay in contact no matter where we have gone in our careers and such. And I just really would encourage folks to, you know, build those relationships, go to local chapter meetings, get involved, and, you know, volunteer for the officer positions too. You know, that's something that some local chapters have a really hard time filling. And it's a great way to get your name out there and another thing to add to your resume. And then you also can look at jobs online too, Alex. I tell folks that that's where, when I was moving from Wisconsin back to Colorado, that's where I found the job opportunities that I then went and interviewed for, to be able to see, okay, what would be a good fit? Where did I want to go in my career and focus? So I just wanted to share those things. The sky is the limit. You have so many opportunities.
Yes, yes. Suzanne Contreras says, yes, I recommend getting involved with your local chapter. I will be co-proctoring my first exam on Saturday.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Also, just, I know we have a real topic to get to, and we will, but consider any job in a healthcare facility, any office job. In fact, I spoke with someone who met a cook who became in the cafeteria of the facility, and they said, "Oh yeah, you work in coding? I recently got my CPC," and that opened that door, building that relationship. So,
I'd like to add one more thing, Alex. I teach in residency programs, nursing programs, and work with people at the level of starting their coding career and moving all the way to the professional services arena. And I often, when I have the opportunity, when I'm talking with the providers, when I'm talking with the residents who are working, when I'm talking to nursing staff, I always pitch, you should learn more about coding, not just documentation, but the real business of what we're doing. And another thing that is, it might sound like it's kind of outside of the scope of what we're talking about right now, but it's really not. There are other opportunities within other organizations, like the Rotary clubs that are local, like your Chamber of Commerce. If you just research some of those community service groups, you will find that there are a lot of professionals that belong to those community service groups. There are volunteer opportunities to get to know people in there and to even become a member if you would choose to. And from that, you will learn that there are a lot of opportunities that occasionally are not being posted as jobs because they're internal to an organization. And if you're willing to maybe take a step and do something to promote yourself and promote yourself correctly and in a way that's extremely professional, it's amazing how many doors will open. So whoever's out there searching for a job, first of all, we all had to find our first job. We all had to do something different. And some of us might have started out as CNAs, EMTs. Coding came along to me, and education was where I landed in a lot of ways, and in audit services. So that first job might be difficult to get. However, don't give up on yourself, believe in yourself, because those of us in this organization and in the community and in the business of healthcare, we need all of you. So please come and join us.
Yes, yes. Sweeta, who is watching, says, does AAPC have or would be able to start an internship program to newbies in the world of coding, or maybe have a shadowing program? So we do have Project Extern. So Google AAPC Project Extern. And the challenge with that is it's not available in all areas. So I think that's where maybe a great mentor will come in and help you out as well. Mallory Wennard asks, when will the medical scribe certification be available? I have been with AAPC for 7 years, and I think 5 of those years I've heard been in meetings talking about the development of the scribe program. I think we're getting close. Geez, I think it might even be available, and I'm going to look if I can find information and put a link in there, Mallory, in the comments. I will do that, as Sandy and Lisa Ray share about the presentation coming up. Real quick, last comment, and then we're going to talk about the webinar. Lisa Hutchinson says, Sandy, you are my mentor, exclamation. I always rely on your wisdom. So yes, you guys have fans.
I love that. No, and I love being able to connect with people and being able to get to know them personally. So please reach out, because I think once we can kind of learn about where people came from, like Lisa Ray said, we all started out somewhere. I didn't start out in healthcare. I started out in healthcare, but I did not start out in coding. It wasn't until I moved in to be a transcriptionist, and then a part-time coding position opened, and then I lived in a very rural area, so I had to wait until they sent me to a class like 7 hours away, because it was before virtual. It shows my age, doesn't it? It was before we had Teams meetings and Zoom, but it's now so much easier. But I just say keep trying, keep pushing forward, and don't take no for an answer, and really network with people. Get on LinkedIn, connect with recruiters and folks on LinkedIn, because I also know that there are many positions, that are opening that you don't have to necessarily have a lot of experience. Sometimes they want to train you, and you may not have those bad habits either. So
yeah.
Just
yes. Well, with that, let's talk about the webinar. I'm just going to say Craig Larson is probably watching. He manages all the committees at AAPC, and he's like, come on, guys, let's get to it. Let's talk about this webinar. So would you guys just share a little bit about what you have cooking in the next couple of weeks with this webinar?
Yeah, so I'll kind of kick it off, and then I'll let Lisa Ray talk about some of the different topics that we're going to cover and such, but we're very excited. So as we shared earlier, we are part of the AAPC compliance committee. So what we try to do is really focus on those topics that are just very timely and things that you may have to deal with. So the webinar that is coming up next Wednesday on the 17th is dealing with the situations of working with your general counsel. And if you are employed by a facility, or the different caveats that you may have to deal with in thinking about keeping something under attorney-client privilege. And we're really, I'll let Lisa Ray talk about, I don't want to steal her thunder, so no. I'll let her kind of talk about things, but we're really wanting to just give people a good baseline of here's the information that you need to know. And so we want it to also be very interactive. We're going to provide some great resources and some great information to you, and we'll have an attorney on. Julie will be joining us from Hawaii, where we wish that we could just go there and have from there. I think that's next year. We'll have to talk to Craig about that, to go to Hawaii and do the webinar live from there. But she will be joining us, and we love the fact that we're going to be able to take questions and answer them. And we're not going to be giving legal advice, of course, but we're just going to tell you what you should do and what steps you should take when you have to do something under attorney-client privilege, or you need to consider that. So, Lisa Ray, I'll let you kind of talk about it from your perspective.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sandy. That's a fantastic overview. And as Sandy said, and so did Alex, Craig Larson is who we work with at AAPC, and he is over the committees, and he does a fantastic job, and we really appreciate his leadership. So in this particular webinar that will be coming up, the way that it's going to be posed is it is a panel. So I will be moderating the panel. We have set questions that we're going to start out with to give a foundation or fundamental beginning. And Sandy and Julie will be answering those questions and making sure that everyone has what we would consider to be the baseline of starting to work with your corporate counsel. We will be answering some very generic and broad questions to begin with. And then as time allows within the hour of that presentation, I will be looking at the questions that are coming in, and I will be putting those questions back to Sandy and Julie. We are going to work diligently to move through as many questions that are coming in as possible. And then we will follow up on those questions that we cannot answer live and make sure that there is an opportunity to get those answered and back out. When we started to talk about this particular topic, the topic came up very specifically in our committee because people had been asking about it. So it's one of those hot topics in membership. And we came back to the table and Craig led us through what would be possibly two opportunities. One, we already have written an article that is going to appear in the AAPC Business Journal. And then also we're doing this particular webinar. As we were taking information from what was being asked by membership into consideration, we took those questions that were basically the same to inform how do we start and what our foundation is, and then we will move on from there. We are looking so forward to seeing all of you on the 17th, and come prepared to first get foundational information and learning, and second, by asking some questions and being part of the interactive portion of this webinar.
Wonderful. This topic has been something that we've addressed several times over the last year or two. I know Michael Misko had a workshop, a two-part workshop, and I think they were doing some training at during conferences as well about this. And I met a member in Denver who this has become her specialty. And I'm curious, is this more, do you find it more interesting and fun than coding? I guess it just depends on the person, but it sounds kind of interesting and takes the investigator of a coder to a different level.
Yeah, and I would like to say that, and that's a great question, Alex. It really is one thing that we have to consider is when we're looking at the results, who our audience is going to be, right? So when we're preparing our deliverable and our results, we need to really consider that because that is going to take it up a notch. I also would say I've grown tremendously over the last probably 15 years of doing things under attorney-client privilege and working with attorneys. It has been an incredibly large growth opportunity for me, just because some of it I didn't know, and I was very thankful that the employer I had at that time had a very stringent policy and procedure on how we did things under attorney-client privilege. And I'm really thankful for that because it was, you know, step by step. You kept a log of all this, you did this, and it was very, very just meditated or calculated. And that taught me the best way to do it. Where I think a lot of us, when we get into this or we have this happen with our general counsel, we just don't know what to do. And it really is being that investigator. I feel like some days, I was actually, just at a client this week where I was trying to kind of investigate things. And yeah, I felt like I was almost needing a disguise or something, can I wear a hat? Can I, wear a wig, that sort of thing, just because we were kind of sneaking in. But it's one of those things that I think it depends upon the situation, but it's a great opportunity to really expand your skills, listen. This is an opportunity just where we may have to listen and convey what we need to as the coder or the auditor, but also listen and listen to what the attorney wants. So, and I know Lisa Ray, you've had a ton of experience in this as well.
Yes. So Sandy hit on a really important point, that this is an opportunity to listen and to understand. As a coder and someone that is leading coding staff or documentation or doing CDI projects, it's also extremely important to take that skill set that we've already learned into any of these meetings, into any of these new challenges. Because what we also need to remember is that the attorneys are trying to pair with us or team with us for the best possible outcome. Now, some of those outcomes might be a payback or something else. That's fine. It's the best possible outcome. So Alex's question about, does this really make us as coders investigators? As a coder, we should always have investigation under our belt and thinking about that. And Jessica spoke to that beautifully earlier in this program when she said that we're always researching something. So that is one of those aspects as a coder that we're doing currently. The other part of it is, as you get involved in a project like this, if it happens, then as Sandy said, you're listening, you're learning, but there's a very methodic and step-by-step process that needs to be followed to do it correctly. And that's where I lead a lot of our physician groups in making sure that our medical staff and our hands-on staff understand their role so that they don't step outside of those bounds of client privilege as well. Thank you for that question, Alex.
Yeah, that was great.
Well, guys, we packed this session in with so much. And I mean, we had no problem going, and we had such a great participation from our audience today. So thank you all watching. It's so much fun to have you participate, asking
Yes.
Lisa Ray and Sandy questions. I think we covered a lot of topics from students and entry-level coders to very experienced veteran coder type of issues. So Lisa Ray, Sandy, hang on with me just for a minute.
Absolutely.
For those watching, as you may know, you may not, but I'm going to throw it out there that you can listen to this presentation on the AAPC podcast. In your favorite podcast app, search for the AAPC podcast, and you can listen to AAPC social hours. You can listen to the I Am AAPC interviews, where we follow the journeys of AAPC members and professionals. And this presentation will be loaded up there in the next few days. So Lisa Ray, Sandy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. And just hang on with me just for a minute. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Next episode, we have two individuals from our, Greg and Dan from our AAPC International Division will be joining us and talking about the growth of coding and compliance across the globe. So I'm excited about that. All right, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Thank you.